which will be more youth, and we expect it to get more interaction from young people. So you can connect with us through social media, and we'll be live through Zoom and Facebook. And you can use the hashtag Africa Youth Read and 100 IGD. Also, you can tag the AU Youth Envoy account on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook also. So you can share with the friends and everybody who is interested to engage in the session and join with us. We'll have Gasparino Aure who will be joining soon from Tanzania, and Miss Anita Komjisha from Uganda. They will be performing today on the opening and closing remark. My name is called Kamara Dixon. I'm East Africa Youth Ambassador, and I'm from Tanzania. Okay, so let me know. Okay, now let me take this opportunity to welcome our Africa Union Youth Envoy, Honorable Miss Aya Chebi, and she will have an introduction to you. Welcome, Aya.
Thank you so much, Kamala. I thought Anita would perform, but as she's getting ready, I'm gonna go ahead and do the opening remarks. So good afternoon, good morning, everyone, wherever you are. Dr. Salomon Derso, Chairperson of the African Commission on Human People's Rights, welcome. Honorable Minister of Youth and Sport of South Sudan, my sister Ilwad, my brother Victor, and everyone, guest speakers, artists, and participants. I welcome all of you to the East Africa Youth Silencing the Guns Intergenerational Dialogue, and thank you for making the time to be with us today to start a conversation in East Africa about the African Union theme of the year, which is silencing the guns, creating conducive conditions for Africa's development. This is meant to be intergenerational, so means all generations are part of the dialogue. Many of you, I think more than 100 or 1,200 registered for the event are from all ages. So we would love to have this as an interactive dialogue. And we're hoping also that this can provide a platform on how we can forge more alliances, how we can bring more young people to the space of the African Union, how can we recruit more youth to the peace building agenda. So we really look forward to the engagement today. And this dialogue is also part of 6 regional dialogues on silencing the guns. We hosted the first one last week for West Africa. And we really want to contextualize the conversation on silencing the guns in each of the African regions. So share with your networks and partners from other regions that Central Africa Dialogue will be on Thursday, the 3rd of September. North Africa will be on Tuesday, 8th of September. Southern Africa will be on the other Thursday, 10th September. And then we will end with Diaspora Dialogue on Tuesday, 15th September. So these 6 dialogues are part of a series of engagement on Youth Silencing the Guns campaign, which was launched by the African Union in July, which is really about centering young Africans in the theme of the year. And it's an extremely important opportunity for young people in East Africa region to contribute to this theme. Not only contribute, but also to drive results, commitment, and accountability for what has been done, what should be done to silence the guns. The outcome of today's engagement will be a regional declaration that will be reported to the leaders and briefed to the AU Peace and Security Council, as well as the UN Security Council. I know that there is probably a fatigue and exhaustion of webinars and consultations and formulating recommendation that we expect its implementation, but we cannot give up. We must not give up. We need to continue consistently and persistently influencing policy spaces and frameworks, and continue our advocacy work for conflict prevention and resolution and challenges in between. So just like young people from your region contributed to the continental framework on youth, peace and security, which was adopted recently by the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. So let us use this opportunity and make sure that our demands are concrete and our advocacy efforts are united with one voice, because the more we're consistent and united on what we're demanding as young people, the more we will see results eventually. We are very mindful that this engagement is online, which means more than 60% of youth in East Africa cannot join us. And we express our solidarity with all the youth in East Africa, especially migrant youth, refugee youth, IDP youth, youth in informal settlements who are trying to make lives for themselves. And in order to ensure that we complement the advocacy efforts with the grassroots engagement, we released, I'm hearing a little bit of echo, so if admin can fix that, please. We also released an intergenerational dialogue toolkit for you as young leaders in East Africa to self-organize these dialogues in your schools, in your communities, in your organizations, as part of 100 intergenerational dialogues we're organizing across the continent and beyond, basically to bridge social, cultural, and political differences between generations. And we explain in the toolkit why organizing these dialogues is crucial, because conflict on the continent is aggravated by the lack of communication between generations. And we want to bring all the voices and generations to collaborate and move beyond this dichotomy where leaders see young people as violent and a threat taken to the streets, and the youth see the leaders and existing system as corrupt, overstaying in power and not representative of them. So we need to start somewhere building trust. And our theory of change is intergenerational co-leadership. In terms of the themes we will discuss today, the main theme is silencing the guns under Agenda 2063, aiming to end all wars, violent conflicts, and prevent genocide. But we also want to unpack the theme into 5 sub-themes that will be discussed later during the breakout sessions for those who signed up. And the sub-themes are free conflict Africa, silencing youth unemployment, poverty and hunger, silencing gender-based violence, silencing corruption, and silencing climate crisis. There are also polls that will be running, and there is one we'll run in a bit, asking you to choose which of these themes is your top priority as a young person. To conclude, I want to sincerely thank our partners. Our intergenerational dialogues are led by the young people in the region. So I'm very glad East Africa Community Youth Ambassadors platforms are taking leadership today. Thank you, Petrida Paul, who is the advisory Youth Council member, and everyone working behind the scene to ensure the facilitation and results of this engagement. Thank you, Kamala, for emceeing this event, also from the EAC Youth. And thank you also to Accord and Kofi Annan Foundation for supporting this series of dialogues. I welcome all of you again, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Aya, for the nice introduction, and I think everyone is on board. I can quote 2 or 3 things you have in your opening remarks. One is conflict is a result of lack of communication between generations, and this is an opportunity for young people and everyone to keep communicating, but also young people representation in the decision-making bodies is very important. Thank you so much. So for now, okay, so for now, I would like to bring in the performance. Komjisha, if you are ready, or Gasparino, please, can we receive you? Okay,
Hello.
Anita Komjisha, you're welcome.
Yes. All right. Hello, Africa. My name is Anita. I'll present a poem titled The Purpose of War. What is the purpose of war? The first man would say to survive, pushing back nature, setting the ground ablaze to live through the night and survive indeed. We have civilization to prove it. While nature subdued has spoils meant to share, no more was it enough to survive. We had to thrive, and not just thrive, but triumph over whoever else was arrived. War had evolved. We decided someone unworthy of freedom, incapable of handling the weight and the responsibility of their wealth. We called it mercy when we took their homes. We decided that some of them could not know better. We decided we knew what was better for everyone else. They didn't know better. The men who warred took people's lives. Now we should know better. Today we live in a world where our streets are littered with shell casings, living in a world where mothers' bodies protect their children not from the cold, from bullet holes, where potential lies in mass graves. Who stirs conflict today? Certainly not the children whose innocent blood runs in the street, nor the generation born into streets chock full of mortars and not potential, not the generation that cannot hope for another day knowing how long they'll live. They only pay the price for the belief and the passions of those who claim to care. War belongs to the men that must have war. War belongs to those that must have more. War belongs to those whose beliefs and knowledge must be questioned. War belongs to those who sit on high pedestals and will not be judged, those who decide who lives or dies, those who know where we should be, those who know what our potential should be. War has also been passed on to those whose only option is to put a barrel at the oppressor or at their own house because their blood is the only thing that they have left to own. Yet we see in Africa, we see hands across the nation reaching to fashion peace. We see a day where potential is screamed down the streets. We see a day where freedom is not conversation, but a reality that we are living, a reality that we're burying our children into. We see hands across the continent bringing an era of peace. We see us rewriting history, that we will not have to repeat the mistakes that we have seen, that we will not have to sit down and tell our children we could have done more, but we had war. We see hands across the continent bringing about a new generation. Thank you. Kamala.
Yeah, thank you so much, Komjisha, for the nice performance. Yeah, and you make the East Africa and Africa youth alive. Yeah, this was nice performance. Thank you so much. So with these regards, I would like to invite Dr. Solomon. Dr. Solomon is a chairperson of Africa Commission on Human and People's Rights. Yes, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you, sir. And the floor is yours. Young people, they're listening to you and they want to hear from you. And I hope your time will make or will change the lives of young people across African continent. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Dixon. I wish to, first of all, thank the African Union Youth Envoy, Aya Chebi, for the invitation extended to me to be part of this important platform on the East African dialogue. As indicated, my name is Solomon Ayele Derso. I'm an Ethiopian, and as noted, I'm a member of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. This is the premier human rights body of the African Union, one of the oldest organs of the AU. By virtue of its name, it's clear that the primary mandate of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights is dealing with human and people's rights. The foundational treaty of the African human rights system is the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. And I would like all of you, dear participants here, to really go and consult this very important historic document, which is the foundation also of the African human rights system. So I would really like and like you and urge you to go and consult the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. It is not only the foundation of the African human rights system, but also an inspiration for many of the human rights instruments adopted within the framework of the African Union and at the regional level by regional economic communities as well. I also wish to say that just a couple of points, although I don't usually like saying this, but I have to say this considering the audience that we have. I am the youngest member of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. The African Commission was established over 30 years ago. In its over 30 years existence, it never had any one other member below the age of 40 years. So I was the youngest to be a member and the youngest to chair this commission as well. So the idea of young people leading and occupying leadership positions in national and regional and international institutions is something that is possible, that you all can aspire to and indeed achieve. In terms of the specific topic that we have, silencing the guns, which is actually one of the flagship projects of the African Union under Agenda 2063, in trying to imagine, but also create the Africa we want, the Africa, a peaceful Africa, prosperous Africa, and indeed human-based Africa. I think that's the kind of Africa that we are trying to not only imagine, but also trying to create. And silencing the guns is a prerequisite for achieving any of the things that we wish to achieve on the African continent. And it is extremely gratifying to see, for example, the signing of a peace agreement yesterday in Juba between various armed groups in Darfur and the transitional government of Sudan. This has become one of the dividends of the transitional process in Sudan that started more than 1 year ago, following the ouster of the former president of Sudan, al-Bashir. We also see major change happening in East Africa, which can have a very positive impact for peace and security, among which are the election expected to take place in some of our countries, some of which can be critical for the transition process, such as the one in Somalia. I'm sure there would be a more competent person to speak about the process that is unfolding in Somalia in order to consolidate the peace process in Somalia. And the upcoming election is one of the prerequisites for achieving that. I also wish to mention that in South Sudan, we also are in the process of implementing the South Sudan Peace Agreement with the formation of the National Unity Government last February. There are lots of challenges, without a doubt, in order to give effect to and realize the objectives and ideals of the peace agreement in South Sudan. But the formation of the national unity government certainly is one of the major first steps towards returning South Sudan back to peace. In order to achieve this, however, there are lots of things that need to be done. On the East African continent, of course, one of the major notable features of this part of the continent is the fact that we also are witnessing generational change, major generational change and demographic change, with the youth becoming ever increasingly conscious of and demanding of respect for and fulfillment of their rights, which actually demands and requires the political systems of the countries of this region to be reformed in order to meet the ever-increasing expectations and demands of the youth, particularly in terms of respect for their rights. There remain challenges in many countries in the region as far as political change is concerned, and indeed as far as socioeconomic change is concerned, many of which can indeed be the source of insecurity and violence. And it is only when we, as young people, not only are conscious of and understand what our rights are, but also how to deploy our voice, that we can be able to establish the conditions that make it possible for holding leaders to account, which is extremely important, but also for pushing for an agenda for change that is premised on respect for human and people's rights, premised on establishing inclusive and just systems of political system, premised on a vision for socioeconomic transformation and the fulfillment of the basic needs of members of society. And in this context, we have come to recognize, as a result of COVID-19, of course, that the most basic needs of society, including water, education, sanitation, housing, access to healthcare, these are the most fundamental needs and demands of all of us for us to live a life of dignity. And it is incumbent upon leaders to ensure that they deliver on these responsibilities and create the conditions for the youth to seek and secure delivery of these basic and fundamental conditions. It is on this account that the African Union agenda on silencing the guns becomes one of the most important flagship projects of the African Union. Without peace, there is no security of the person, security of the family, security of our societies. Without peace, we can't at all plan to go to school, graduate from school, and be entrepreneurs or be employed and earn a decent living. Without peace, there is no way that we can plan to establish a family. Peace is a prerequisite for every other thing that we wish to achieve. It is therefore extremely important that we, all of us, become advocates of peace. All of us become advocates of silencing the guns. Of course, we have to recognize that the source of conflict are very much known. Some of it has to do with history, the way the African state and our politics is designed and organized is such that it actually perpetuates inequality and injustice. And it's extremely imperative that we push for correcting the way power is organized, exercised, and distributed on our countries. This is one of the prerequisites for peace and stability. Second, obviously, it is about respect for human and people's rights. Without respect for human and people's rights, and without a system of governance that is founded on and promotes and protects human and people's rights, peace can't be achieved. It is the lack of regard and respect for human and people's rights that often leads people and push them into situations of conflict and violence in demand for respect of their dignity. We receive a number of very disappointing and saddening reports. For example, this week, it was reported that many young East Africans are found in a very dehumanizing conditions in Saudi Arabia, in what is supposed to be a COVID-19 shelter, with no regard whatsoever to the humanity of these East Africans. We have seen reports early last month on the 19th of August of 45 African migrants dying on the Mediterranean Sea. It's not the first, it's one of the major incidents of death. The reason why people, particularly the youth, leave their countries and experience this kind of dehumanizing experiences has to do with the existence of not necessarily physical violence of the gun, but the existence also of structural violence, of lack of access to the basic needs. And therefore, the youth end up risking everything, including their lives, in search for something that gives them meaning. That shouldn't be the case. Africa is a very rich continent. And this is not actually for giving us some mental satisfaction that I say this. And this is the truth. Africa is endowed with huge natural resources that actually fires up the economy of the world, the economy of China, and many others. It is the lack of self-government, the lack of the necessary policies, and the lack of visionary leaders that is depriving us of the opportunities that comes with having those natural resources. And it is incumbent on us as the youth to demand and indeed push for the creation of these conditions for having visionary and ethical leadership, a leadership that is committed for uplifting people from the yoke of poverty and impoverishment. It is on account of this that we can be able to end the suffering that Africans endure wherever they go, and the days that they face, whether on the Mediterranean Sea or on the Gulf of Aden or in Saudi Arabia, or the humiliation that they suffer in China. It is incumbent on us, it is incumbent on our leaders that these conditions end. I thank you for your attention and wish you all the very best. And I look forward to engaging with you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Solomon. This was the brilliant speech. A few things from his speech I quote. He said, without peace, there is no human security, a person, a family. Without peace, there is no one who can be able to access education or access social services. But also, few among of things he has explained is about Africa. Like Africa is a rich continent with a lot of resources, but Africa, we are lacking visionary and ethical leaders who can transform the life of young people, life of the people, and make sure everyone is accessing and benefiting with the resources. But lastly, from Dr. Solomon, he said, we need to end poverty. No more dying of young people across the Indian Sea, going to seek refugees in other countries. We need to remain in Africa. Africa is our motherland. Africa is our home. Thank you so much, Dr. Solomon, for this brilliant speech. And I think everyone who is joining this call is enjoying of having you in the house as a young person who joined Africa Union under the age of 40. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can keep engaging with us through social media. Please ask everyone to engage through social media. And our hashtag is Africa Youth Lead. You can connect with us and share, but also we are live in Zoom and Facebook. Okay, so, and there is the poll. Please, if you see the poll, just vote in. And if you have a question or anything, put it on the chat box and I'll be able to bring it on the board as you will be asking me to. Okay, so for this, I would like to take this opportunity again to welcome our panel. And in our panel, we have Honorable Dr. Albino, the Minister of Youth and Sports from Republic of Sudan. Another person I have on the panel is Miss Ilwan. She's working on Peace and Human Rights Center in Somalia. And lastly, we have Victor, Africa Youth Initiative from Uganda. Welcome, Irwad, Victor, and Honorable Minister. So now, okay, so now from the Office of Honorable Minister in South Sudan, I would like to hear from you. South Sudan is a young nation, but also the theme of this year on youth silencing the gun is one of the issues that connects with your office. Maybe from your office or from your plan, can we hear from you what is the big plan, the big issue you are planning for young people in Southern Sudan connected to the theme of this year? You're welcome, Honorable Dr. Albino. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, let me recognize the presence of my sister Aya and Dr. Solomon in this great interaction. And I would like first to appreciate the African countries and the young African who stood with the Republic of South Sudan, with the people of South Sudan actually before we became a country. I remember we were refugees in Ethiopia, Kampala, Kenya. All these people were the first people who stepped in and helped the people of South Sudan in the hottest days. And nowadays, we are called a Republic of South Sudan due to what our colleagues and brothers and sisters in Africa offered to us as a support in those days. It is my privilege as the Minister of Youth and Sport in the Republic of South Sudan also to participate in this important gathering, Young African Silencing the Gun in 2020. This theme is very important in my view because the people of South Sudan are the well-known people in the region of suffering from communal fighting since we were one united Sudan We have been fighting since 1955. And then 1972, there was a peace, but then the war broke out again in 1983 up to 2005, where we signed the peace agreement, and now South Sudan got its independence in 2011. And then after 1 year only, the people of South Sudan went into intercommunal fight among themselves for the last 7 years. And now, with the help of the region, especially Ethiopia and other neighboring countries, we were able to achieve peace. And now we are at the implementation era of the revitalized peace agreement. And the most important thing that was to be mentioned is that the peace agreement, for the first time, to dedicate a ministry to the young people, and the Ministry of Youth and Sport was dedicated to be given to the young people, of which I was the most luckiest person, of course, to be the first and the youngest minister being appointed in the cabinet of this revitalized agreement. So this is one of the things that I want to draw the attention of the young people in Africa, that it is good also to give the young people, as I saw Dr. Solomon having that brilliant speaking to us, is a part of solving the problem of the young people by giving them a platform, an avenue for them to address their issues. And I'm here appealing to all African leaders also to give the young people in Africa the opportunity to serve themselves by themselves, because they are the one who knows what are they suffering from, because we are at the generation of .com that is a bit different from those days, and we are the one to propose our needs. So is my appeal to all African leaders. Also, this theme of the day is very important, as Dr. Solomon mentioned earlier, that yesterday we have witnessed the signing of the peace agreement between the Revolutionary Front and the government of the day in Sudan, the transitional government of Sudan. And let me congratulate His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Salva Kiir Mayardit, who have offered this platform to the people of Sudan. I believe Sudan and South Sudan are still sharing the same values and the same historical ties, and we will remain as the neighboring countries to the end of the days. And it is very important for the two countries to have a peaceful coexistence, because the bordering line that we are sharing with Sudan is the longest border. And what led to the independence of the Republic of South Sudan is quite different from the interaction between the citizens of Sudan and people of South Sudan. We are still saying that we are one people in two countries, and we need that border and bordering tribe to live in a peaceful coexistence. And also is a very important initiative from His Excellency the President in order to realize peace in Darfur. People of Darfur have been subjected in an untold suffering, and people of Nuba Mountains and all that, the Black African also in Angasina area, those of Blue Nile. So it's very important for these marginalized people of Sudan to have peace, and then they have to be taken as a part of decision making in the center. What brought all the problems in Sudan is when the Black African people, the vast majority people, are not seeing themselves in this mirror of decision making process in Khartoum. That what caused all these problems and subsequent independence of South Sudan. But still we are saying that the Sudanese people are great people that need to live in peace, and that's why what have been achieved yesterday is a great milestone towards achieving a comprehensive peace in two countries, Sudan and South Sudan. When there is a war in Sudan, South Sudan got affected, and the reverse is true also. Now we have refugees who came from Sudan, and Sudan was hosting and is still hosting some refugees who fled the conflict. So we are still combined by the nature of neighborhood, and we are still combined with the common history. So is my appeal also to the young people of Sudan who are following this, especially the young people who are supporting General Abdulaziz Adam El-Helu, who is not a part of this peace, and General Abdul Wahid Mohammed Noor, is also an appeal to them to come to Juba and add their voices also to have this compromise agreement and a comprehensive solution to the people of Sudan. This is very important also because it's in line with the motto of African problems to be solved by Africans. And I believe the people of Africa are the people who knows their real problems instead of bringing white people to reconcile them. His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Sudan now has proven that we are ready and we are able to solve our problem. Coming to the issue of engagement of the young people in order to achieve the silencing of gun theme that we have raised today is very important. And in context of South Sudan, I want to say that South Sudan is a country of 13 and a half million population. We have 72% are the young people who are constituting the vast majority of our population, and engaging this group of the young people will determine the fate of the nation. And let me say this, as Her Excellency Aya put it, that we need intergenerational dialogue to consult with all ages about what to be done for the young people in order to silence the guns. Because at the end of the day, those who are now fighting on the ground are the young people, though they have been incited by elderly people sometimes. So it's very important to have this intergenerational engagement and dialogue. And in South Sudan, we are still, despite that the peace is being now on implementation, we are still experiencing some communal conflict in some areas. And this is due to lack of engagement. Young people who don't have jobs, young people who did not get a chance to go to school are still practicing these cattle raiding activities and robbing of the passengers on the roads, and committing atrocities, because it's become like a source of survival. So is my privilege also to tell you that the Ministry of Youth and Sport now has come up with a lot of proposals on how the young people can be engaged in order to redirect them in a positive direction. Now we are making proposals on youth entrepreneurship activities. I mean by that microfinancing of good feasibility studies and agricultural activities, and also vocational training to those who did not get a chance. I want to conclude by saying that is my privilege also to say that the young people of South Sudan are working very hard with their peers and their colleagues in Africa to make sure that peace is achieved all over Africa, and in South Sudan and Sudan particularly, because silencing of the gun cannot be achieved without leaving South Sudan and Sudan behind. So it's my appeal to all of you and to all the partners also to put hands together so we can work hand in hand. As I want to appreciate the UNDP and other partners who are working with us in South Sudan. They have been always with us in the ministry. And I want to appreciate Aya and Dr. Solomon and all the participants. And here also I'm with the young people from different organizations and even from African Union youth volunteers who are attending with me here this conference also live. I want to appreciate everyone for giving us this an avenue, and I wish you all the best as we are keeping mobilizing for peace and reconciliation in our country. And I agree with you, the former speakers, that silencing of the gun and peace is paramount before everything to be achieved for the young people. May God bless Africa and bless South Sudan.
Much, Honorable Minister. And now I would like to take an opportunity to welcome people treat their fellows in
We couldn't hear you, Kamala. Can you say that again?
Yes, you can. Did you hear the question?
No, we didn't hear you. Can you say it again?
Okay. So the question was, why did Africa treat their pharaohs inhuman? In the case of, we know you have been doing a lot in Somalia, but we need to know, why does African people treat their pharaohs inhuman? Can you hear me?
Sorry, after the Honorable Minister spoke, I heard nothing. So please start over.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. So
who's next? Who are you talking to? Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Okay, great. So please ask your question.
Yeah, I'm talking to you because you are the second person in the panel.
Okay, wonderful. Let's go.
Okay, so the question, my question, or the point of discussion, like, you have been doing a lot of work in Somalia, and we have been experiencing the more of dehumanization and inhuman against the Pharaoh people in Africa. Like, why does that situation happens? Please, the floor is yours.
Why do fellow Africans bring harm or challenges to their fellow Africans is what I believe the question is. But am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, before I answer your question, I would just like to say thank you very much for having me on this dialogue. Africa, we are so behind. Aya's role as the first youth envoy to the African Union, Dr. Solomon, the first and youngest to hold his role, the Honorable Minister of Youth in South Sudan. It's incredible that we are just now seeing young people in positions of leadership on the continent. Yet we have 700 million young people under the age of 30 in Africa. How are we going to silence the guns without including those who are holding the guns? The ones who are shot and killed the most by the guns, and those that are forced to flee under horrific conditions, sometimes by sea, to migrate by Europe because of the guns. It all comes down to young people. In East Africa particularly, the terrorist group Al-Shabaab, which means the youth, recruits, exploits, and systematically invests in young people of this region. They have a strong foothold in Somalia, but every country represented here today knows that they are also affected by this group. Groups like these spend hundreds of hours in one person to get them to join their cause. And unless the same kind of hundreds of hours are invested by government and by social services and NGOs and donors into that one person, we will not win this war. I believe that this generation of young people in Africa have the best chance of ending extreme inequality and ending the conflicts of this world that they have inherited. We have inherited this war. South Sudan, much like Somalia, has been in conflict for most of our lives. At first, we seem to have thought we knew what we were fighting for, but no longer now. What we now need is access to mentorship, access to knowledge, and real investments being made in young people. We hear of the political will. We see resolutions, 2250, 2335, so many resolutions talking about the role of young people in peace and security, which is all very important and an entry point for accountability. But what we also need is ordinary people, young people, doing their part to create the peace that they want to see. In Somalia, in my organization, Elman Peace Center, we are trying to silence the guns through our Drop the Gun and Pick Up the Pen campaign. We provide skills training, entrepreneurship, investments in youth, psychosocial counseling, all these different initiatives to give young people an opportunity to contribute to peace instead of war. And I know firsthand that if you give young people this opportunity to be involved, they will join. I had the fortune of being mentored by the late Kofi Annan, along with 9 other young people who taught us about peace processes, about international policy, and really invested in us as young people to be the leaders of the future. But he also tasked us with training other young people. So through an initiative called Extremely Together, I'm now supporting a local chapter in Somalia of 25 incredible young people in how to be a part of building peace in Somalia. The hope is that they will then continue to train other young people. And the same thing is happening in Uganda, in Nigeria, in Philippines, in Pakistan. And this is an example of how when one leader from an older generation invests in a young person now and gives them the tools and the resources to continue to train other people, this is how we will create peace. Actually investing in young people through capacity, but also resources so that the ideas that they come up with can come to life. I believe that if we really want to build peace in East Africa and throughout the continent, we have to do more than just lip service. We have to actually band together. We have to co-create solutions, and we have to have leaders and older generations investing in those. We need to actually match action and resources to the rhetoric that we constantly hear. We know the energy, the creativity, and the solutions that young people offer. Yet what's missing right now is to actually let them act on them. So the question that you asked about solidarity between other African countries and making sure that, we also change the perception that we have of each other, that's also very important. And that happens through exchanges. We need to create opportunities for young people to collaborate together, to work on shared issues and providing solutions together. I think that any African who looks down on another African country or others them, it's part of self-hate, but that will come with more education and more opportunities for us to cross borders. And Ethiopia, for example, right now, and many other countries on the continent that are now making visa-free arrangements, that's a big step forward in getting rid of some of those perceptions. I think I'll conclude my remarks by just saying that young people are not waiting to be involved with processes. They are already demonstrating how without access, without inclusion, that they can create change in their own communities. And it's in the interest of leaders today to see them as credible actors and partners. But even if they don't, they will continue to organize for peace because we are tired. We're tired of having to be in conflict that we inherited. I want to give you one example of an organization I met recently in Somalia that I'm quite proud of. On International Youth Day, an organization called Mandis invited me to come to a dialogue that they were hosting. There, they brought together young people from all different regions of Somalia. Some of them were candidates for political positions, others were NGO activists, others were SGB activists, all from different parts of the country. But what brought them together was the same ideology. And that was really refreshing to see that young people today in Somalia are not being divided by tribe. They're not being manipulated and used by elders for their own agenda. They're aligning with one vision. And those are the kind of movements that we see, that we need to see happening in every single corner of our continent, because we are the majority. And there is power in numbers, but we just need strategy and investments. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Irwad, for your great speech. Few from you is we have big number of young people and we need to invest in them so that they can be productive for the community and engage in the peace process. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being an honorable woman in the panel. We're great to have you here. Okay, so before I welcome Victor, Victor is online. Victor is working with Africa Youth Initiative in Uganda. I would like to know if you have a question, please you can just raise hand and we have like 5 or 4 questions. And then if you can't raise your hand, please just write on the chat box and we'll have the time to read your question. So now I would like to welcome Victor. Please, Victor, the floor is yours. Victor, okay. Victor, can you hear me?
I can hear you well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. So Uganda has been hosting, or is said Uganda is the country has more refugees in East Africa. And you have been working in peace initiative in Uganda. How do fellow people in Uganda look on refugees issues, and do you see there is any contribution of Uganda towards for creation of peace in East Africa region, with the case of Republic of South Sudan and Rwanda during the genocide in the region, please?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kamala and Dr. Albino, together with Ilwat. I am so grateful to join you guys in the panel, but also to send you my warmest regards from Lera district, where my head office is in northern Uganda. And I'm really great that we are discussing matters of this nature. And you asked the question about what do Ugandans understand by hosting so many refugees after years and decades of conflicts in the region. In summary, I can say Ugandans do get it so right that refugees are human. Refugees are just us. Refugees and Ugandans are one. So that's why you find a country of mixed population from different countries. So as a citizen of this country, we are so proud, together with my colleagues, that we are giving our brothers opportunities to survive the hardship of conflict. We're so proud about, and the country is committed. And I think history has shown that over the years, Ugandans have never gotten tired of hosting people who are fleeing from adversity and who are seeking refuge. And that's why we are open and we are committed to share whatever we have to support refugees. Now, taking me back to the topic of the day, which is about silencing the guns. To begin with, an example is the issues of gun violence, why people flee. The question is, do you stay home and wait to die, or you flee? People run away because life is harder on land, just like everywhere. Young people are trying, they're becoming slaves in the Middle East. People are dying in the sea trying to exit the continent. This is the painful bit of the gun violence we're seeing in the continent. But again, to begin with, I would say silencing the guns will only succeed if we have alternative to guns. Without alternative to guns, silencing the guns is a rhetoric that will go nowhere, because we should be able to answer the question, who are the gun dealers? Who are the gun owners? Who are the gun users? And who are the gun victims? Yes, we know a lot of people are doing business in the continent. They're trying whatever they can do to make sure that they trade in the continent, they bring and sell weapons in the continent. They are the gun dealers. And our governments are more committed, governments in the region actually, they are more committed in military powers than promoting education at all. How comes we have military tanks? No nation in the region has less than 100 or less than 1,000 military tanks within their country. But how many ventilators do we have? We don't have ventilators. When COVID comes, people die. And luckily this time, COVID shut down all international flights that our leaders could not flee. Otherwise, they would seek treatment in Europe, in Asia, in all these other places. I'm happy that for the first time, God has said, we belong together, stay home, face the hardship. You have refused to develop your own country. You have taken away the funds which are supposed to promote education, promote health facilities. You invest them in guns. And now we are all facing the challenges. So looking at the gun users are the young people. They are the unemployed youth. The young who are unhappy, they are sad, they have lost it all. And I do know majority of young people in Africa do want to serve their nations willingly. But to a greater extent, poverty forces them to pick up the weapon, to become either state police or to join whatever section of the security they want to join. Majority are compelled because of the hardship, because of lack of opportunities. And youth are also the gun victims. You are empowered, you are militarized to destroy your own people. So the two situations, the categories that young people fall in, we are the gun victims and also we are the gun users. Yet the gun owners are sending us from our capitals to go and fight for them. All I'm saying to young Africans, do not die fighting on behalf of politicians who do not send their children. They send you to go and die for them. And yet for them, they send their kids to go and study overseas. So that is one. And then on another count, the truth is the gun violence is such an horrifying experience that we need a lot of sincere, loving encounters as young people. And we have to see that as young people, never feel powerless to resist war. In war, we all lose. Nobody wins. We might claim that we are we're the victors, we are the winners of the day. But where do we even get the power just to take pride in decorating ourselves with all the military ranks in the world? Yet we have killed our fellow citizens. We have denied them opportunity. So I think the greatest thing, the fastest thing to bury in East Africa is hatred, ethnicity, and tribalism. If we can bury hatred, ethnicity, and tribalism, we shall have a continent or a region that is peaceful. Of course, I can also say that reckless attacks leads to reckless revenge by so many. But if young people see that they have no alternative to the life of hardship they have been living, they have no opportunity to escape the injustice they've been facing, it becomes so difficult. In a way, law gets so difficult to understand if law enforcement breaks it with pleasure. If we are given guns, we are put in power. How much do we use our power to protect and care for the vulnerable, the weaker, the underprivileged in our society? We shouldn't use our position, our power to be a reason for us to pass the enemies, the so-called enemies. Of course, I will conclude by saying, for us to promote peace in East Africa or in the region, let us understand the economic hardship. Let us understand that the region has got the largest population of this unskilled youth. They are unskilled because they did not attend the necessary education, and yet they are very much available, ready forces for recruits. They can fight, even though they can get jobs in formal sectors, they are ready for war, they can fight. So if you can understand this, that the region is dominated by the unskilled young generation, followed by semi-skilled, those who have studied midway, and very few are fully skilled young people. We need to create opportunity. The question is, how can we promote economic inclusivity and innovation by creating larger labor market for semi-skilled and unskilled youth in the region? This would answer the question. It will give us opportunity. I know it gets difficult to take it, but let us understand that even if we are hurt, even if we are unhappy, we have to remain collected as young people. People have seen it all. We have seen the pain and we have lost it, and we have a choice. Our voices are right. Let us stand and speak with one spirit of humanity, but also let us work and make sure that we won't accept to be used as tools for war. Youth must refuse to accept to be used as assets for war, as tools for injustice. This is what we have to do. This is what we must stand up with and resist the reason for why we have to keep seeing gun violence all over the continent. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Victor, for your speech. So now I'll take 4 questions, and the panel, you have the chance to respond to the question, and after we'll move on with our agenda. So on the call, Salah, we go. Salah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to attend this dialogue. I want to ask first. I always dream to travel in East Africa by car, but when I see the situation now we are facing, it is not possible. But when and what time do we go to each and every country or open borders as peace and prosperity, and all African youth will get job and security everywhere. Thank you everyone, and I'm very happy to attend this.
Admin, can you allow another person?
Thank you. May I come in?
Yes.
This is Hassan
Introduce
Morit,
yourself
from Somalia.
Okay.
I'm Hassan Morit from Somalia, Vice Chairperson at Somali Greenpeace Association. We majorly address on peace issues and climate change crisis in Somalia. I would like to ask a specific question to Elman. My question is, when we're talking about silence the gunning, and what we majorly know is the motor drivers and who use this, these guns are majorly the youth. So how can we stop the use, knowing that 70% of African youth are unemployed and are idle in the street, and they can be benefited or recruited from any radicalized people who have their own beneficial issues. So how can we employ these issues, these youth, so that they will not have the chance to be recruited to be used as the bullet and the guns in their own countries? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Ilwad will respond to your question. Admin, please, if you can allow another person, 2 to go. Oh, okay. Can you allow Mutana Gakuru to ask a question?
Mutana Gakuru, I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Proceed.
I'm Mutana. I'm a young, I'm a junior programs officer at UNESCO in the headquarters in Paris, and I work in the culture sector. I'm a focal point for Africa in the region, and that is one of the reasons why I'm very passionate about what's going on in the continent and how the youth are moving and how the African Union Youth Envoy is organizing these talks. So I just wanted to ask an open question to ask, like, since this violence, it causes a lot of destruction also to cultural heritage, to cultural properties, to the culture of people. How can we use this same culture, and how can we use creativity as a way of silencing the guns? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, let me take this opportunity to allow our panel, Honorable Dr. Our panel, we had Honorable Dr. Albino, the Minister of Youth and Sports from Republic of South Sudan. We had Ms. Ilwad Shuak on Peace and Human Rights Center in Somalia, and Mr. Victor from Africa Youth Initiative. You have heard the question from the participants. Now you have the chance to respond to the question. Please, can I start with Honorable Minister? We have short time, so please, we will grant you at least you. If 1 minute is enough for you to respond to the question, please, you're welcome.
Let me try. Let me try.
Doctor.
Thank you. For the fellow that asked about the creativity from Paris that can participate and contribute in silencing the gun. This is my experience. If you have something to do, if you have business or any entrepreneurship or any creativity that you have that keep you engaged, you will not go and fight. And people are fighting today, are young people being used and being misused by politicians who have their political agenda. And for us to engage them in a positive direction is by engaging them, giving them to stand on their own feet. So I think by the young people to have their own programs is the only way forward to achieve everlasting peace and silence the gun. Also, the question about the dream, my brother Samuel, to drive to East African countries, that dream can be a reality if we, the young people, continue preaching peace, talking to our peers, because we are the majority. Majority are the one to determine the fate of the nation. We can have all the access peacefully to all the African countries if the young people put a pressure on their governments, work very hard to silence the gun. There are countries now who are trying to even collect guns by force. To me, this is not a solution because the absence of the gun doesn't mean peace. We need to speak to the mind of the young people, giving them alternative, telling them what is a better life to all of them. This is what will bring everlasting peace when you and I know our common values and our common interests as individuals, not as tribes, because none of us has chosen his country or his tribe or his religion. And I'm happy what my sister Ilwat is doing in Somalia is what we need. We want to see a peaceful Somalia. We want to see all the religious groups in Africa and all the tribes living in peace. And that thing cannot be achieved if the young people doesn't work to correct things. And I want to tell my brother Samuel, don't give up, because it's always said, winners never quit and quitters never win. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Ilwad, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. So I think one of the questions was, how are we achieving the goal of silencing the guns in Somalia? So the work that I'm involved with in Somalia includes the campaign that I mentioned, Drop the Gun, Pick Up the Pen, where we actually try to work with young people that are in armed groups right now to give them a dignified alternative to violence. We don't have a peace agreement in place in Somalia between the warring factions and the government. We don't know how long that will take, but we do know the majority of those that are carrying weapons today, that are fighting for these groups on either end, are young people. They don't have decision-making authority, but they are doing it for survival, for self-protection, for an economic gain, whatever. But there's an opportunity to engage with them and give them an opportunity that is outside of the conflict. And once you give them that opportunity, more often than not, they do choose that. And we are seeing success in that. So we're going to continue to provide opportunities for young people to defect from these groups. And this is until our government and the warring factions can sit together and we can have a national disarmament intervention. We don't have to wait for these processes. There's little things that we can do every day. Another question that was in the chat was, are there any girls in these programs? Yes, there are. Girls are disproportionately affected by conflict. And sometimes they're foot soldiers, sometimes they're used as, forced marriage, intelligence. There's different roles that women and girls play as well too. So we also have to understand that this is not just young boys or men that are part of the conflict, and any intervention has to be cognizant of that. I want to address one comment that was made in the chat box that said Somalia is the biggest threat to East Africa because of Al-Shabaab. And I think this is very disappointing to see, because Somalia is not the threat. Somalia is an East African country with a huge young population like any other country. The threat is armed groups like Al-Shabaab. And we, as young people fighting for peace, have to understand that we are a country fighting them just as you are. And as long as we think people living in a place like Somalia are our enemies, we will not move forward. This is the self-hate that we were talking about. We need to understand that a transnational network like Al-Shabaab does not define us all. But we're short on time. I have included all of my contact details in the chat, and I'm very happy to carry this conversation forward, because this is how we will create peace in East Africa: collaboration and dialogue. So I do have to leave, but thank you very, very much for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much. Now, Victor. Victor,
Yes,
if you can hear me. Okay.
I can hear you loud and clear. Yeah. Thank you very much, the colleagues and also fellow youth online who are in their different countries. To begin with, the dialogue, the topic of the day was the intergenerational dialogue. The key, how important is it in terms of silencing the guns? And I can say that when young and old works together, not even Corona will withstand us, and gun will go silent. There's that power in unity of intergenerational power. We just need to get a way of getting along. So that is one. Secondly, the bigger force for stability is a product of consensus democracy. If we can appreciate the need to listen to young people, give opportunity for young people to participate in politics, we need to send young people to leadership, but we don't need to lose them to politics. I think this is important. Sometimes they go to politics because they feel displaced and listened to, and they have to fight their way. But we're saying, can we send them to lead, not just for the sake of going and getting lost in the political money and power and fame and all these kind of things. And then lastly, democracy means you have the power to select and deselect a leader. We have to give opportunity to democracy. We shouldn't be fighting our ways to power. Gone are the days where we have to fight, to resist, and you kill your brothers because you want to become a president. Those days are gone. Our generation, we must never kill our ways to power. We must vote our ways to power. We must love our ways to power. And leaders too must listen to the legitimate discontent of the young people. If we can do this, gun will go silent. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Victor. And thank you so much for our panel for the engagement and your presentation. This was so great. And now I would like to welcome Miss Kerry. Miss Kerry, Kerry, are you online? Kerry.
Yes.
Okay, I think we have a challenge. Admin, can you allow Dr. Solomon, while we are waiting for Kerry to settle with the internet?
I can hear you, Mr. Kamal.
Okay, can you give me some?
Hear me, please?
Yeah, your internet has a challenge. Okay, admin, can you allow Dr. Solomon for a few minutes while we're waiting for Kerry to settle with the internet?
Yes, Dixon.
Yes, you're welcome, Doctor.
All right. I tried to look through the chat. I'm not sure if there is any specific question that was addressed to me, but I think there are a few important questions relating to, I think, community level engagement and activity, particularly in terms of creating opportunities for youth. But also, I think the question that was asked in relation to culture and arts and the role of culture and arts. There is this famous quote that says, war starts in the mind of man, and therefore its solution therefore starts in the mind of man. And this quote clearly conveys a very important message for all of us in terms of the imperative and necessity of creating awareness and consciousness about the cost of war and violence, about the necessity of increased awareness about rights, but also about the value of peace, the value of living together harmoniously, the value of knowing that you as an individual, you have a very strong capacity for changing your fortune, for changing also your conditions. And this, of course, depends on you empowering yourself with knowledge about your context, with knowledge about your country, your community, and with knowledge that frees yourself from the conditions that you are in. I think that's extremely important. I see some notes that say that the first enemy for Africans are Africans themselves. I think attitudes like these ones are very negative attitudes. I think it's extremely important to understand that there are two things. One is, of course, the issue in the mind, and this can only be changed through our body requires food. In the way our body requires food, our mind also requires enlightenment, requires education. I think one of the most important things that we need to demand, we need to make sure, and we as the youth have actually a very strong responsibility for this, to advocate for all boys and girls to go to school. And that is one of the prerequisites and the surest way for changing not only your life as an individual, but also your communities. So schooling and being advocates for young boys and girls to go to school, that is extremely, extremely important. And governments have the responsibility for providing for school in all our countries. It is incumbent on governments either to directly provide for school or create the conditions so that others are able to provide for schooling. But it is extremely important that all boys and girls are going to school, because ignorance is one of the bases for going to violence. With the empowerment of education, we can demand accountability of our governments for all the kinds of abuses, corruption, and inequalities that create the conditions for people to be pushed to the periphery and therefore to pick up guns and go to violence. This is extremely another extremely important aspect of the issue that we need to take into consideration. Finally, from my side, as I conclude, in terms of the question, how do we gauge the gun silence at the national level? Given that this is an ambitious project, that was one of the questions that I saw in the chat box. So this obviously relates to a number of things that I have indicated earlier on. But at the national level, the conditions for peace are very much known. It is about respect for the dignity of each and every human being. It's about equality of opportunities for access to education, for access to healthcare, for employment. It's about having a political system that enables and allows many victors, many Ilwals, many Dixons to thrive in all our societies. Of course, it doesn't mean that we get everything from government. We have to demand that government actually responds and delivers on this, because that is the premise on which governments exist, to deliver for the well-being of all of us. I think this is extremely important. But education, extremely important. And this year, for example, as a result of COVID, UNICEF is reporting that 30 million kids, particularly in the developing world, may not return to school when schools are open. And this is a huge number. And those of us with the opportunity to go to school should be advocates of our brothers and sisters who, for many reasons, may not be able to return to school, so that they are able to return to school. This is how we create the conditions for peace. Each of us playing our individual roles and responsibilities. Thank you very much again.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Solomon, for being with us and listening to the youth and discussion, and also for coming back to answer our question. We thank you so much for your time. We thank you so much for your energy and effort, but also we are so great to hear from you, because your insights and wisdom will build us to lead to the generation that will take the leadership into another account. Thank you so much, Doctor. And also, thank you so much for the panel, Honorable Dr. Albino from the Republic of South Sudan. Thank you so much for your time and insights. Irwad from Somalia, thank you so much for your time and insights. And Victor Ochieng, thank you so much for your insights on leadership. We are great to have you on the board. So now I would like to call on Kerry Kaze. If you can hear me, please, the floor is yours. You have 3 minutes.
Thank
Okay,
you
you're
so
welcome, Kerry.
much. Yes, thank you so much for having me, Mr. Kamal. And thank you so much to everyone on the call. So I'm Kelly Cynthia Kaze from Burundi. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Proceed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. Thank you especially for the AU Office of the Youth Envoy for providing this space to exchange on how everyone can play a role to transform the Africa we want. So I'm here to represent the African Youth Front on Coronavirus by representing the African Women Leaders Network, Young Women Leaders Caucus. So I will be discussing with you on the work that African Youth Front on Coronavirus is doing. So it has been launched on May 6, 2020 by the African Union Office of the Youth Envoy with Africa CDC and Department of Social Affairs. It's a multi-stakeholders youth advocacy group to support the implementation of the African Continental Strategy for COVID-19 pandemic. And this makes the African Union Office of the Youth Envoy the first intergovernmental organization to have this high-level policy and advocacy framework for young people to co-lead Africa's response to the pandemic. So this was a pioneering project by the AU Office of the Youth in Voi. It has came throughout the virtual consultations held by the Office of the Youth in Voi since March 23rd. It was around 13 focus groups consultations with over 400 young leaders across the region from 42 countries. And since 22 April, with over 22,800 participants in public consultations, the AU Office of the Youth in Voi engaged different stakeholders to discuss and have youth in solidarity for more effective continental coordinated efforts. The purpose of the consultations were a form of mobilization for a collective youth response, as we have observed that young people were in confinement phase between March and June, and they were needed to have credible information as well as preventive and response measures to be provided to them. So we had the participation of the AU commissioners to guide us on how we can support the Africa CDC, and also briefing us on how we can engage in Africa CDC work and be the bridge between the AU response and grassroots youth organizations, youth actors on the ground. The main objectives of the African Youth Front on Coronavirus is to organize, mobilize, and unite youth and grassroots civil society actors, as well as to convene and facilitate regularly the virtual AU Youth Consultation Series on COVID-19 with the purpose of informing as well briefing and engaging youth constituencies and address the needs of young people, especially the marginalized one. So it's made by different working groups to allow young people in the youth front to lead activities, which are prevention. We have also affected communities working group, and we have post-COVID response working group, as well as communication and campaigning working group to take a lead in all activities related to online campaign and developing the consistent content. So here is the progress of the African Youth Front on Coronavirus. 18 networks have been identified as a result of the virtual AU youth consultations, including national youth councils, including students, refugees, young women, entrepreneurs, movements, activists, and different actors that can really contribute in this work. So we have worked on youth contributions to the partnership.
Yes.
To the partnership. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you wrap up because we are out of time? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm going to brief you on the advocacy efforts that have been already taken out by the Youth Front, which are mainly to the facilitation of youth consultation sessions at the virtual Africa Youth Policy Consultation, as well as the rollout of PACT initiative by the Africa CDC, and so on. So on the impact that the COVID-19 is doing on young people, we have conducted consultations within the networks made by the that make the Youth Front, and there we have seen that there are effects on education, there are effects on unemployment. Many young people, especially in the informal sectors, have lost their sources of livelihood, and this affects this initiative of silencing guns, because if we have young people who are unemployed, where it will be very easy to manipulate them and getting more guns users as young people. So we have also gender-based violence, reported increase in case of gender-based violence, rape, and teenage pregnancies. We have conditions of vulnerable young people which have been more affected.
Okay.
We have more reported cases of mental health struggles, as well as rising mortality. So by closing,
yes.
Yes, by closing, we have immediate post-lockdown priorities for young people, which is mainly the intergenerational co-leadership, also of employment and economic support, among many. And so this intergenerational co-leadership is crucial for young people and for the transformation of the Africa we want. Young people do not want business as usual. We want the systemic failings that were exposed by the pandemic to be addressed in a through and structured manner with youth, not really as more beneficiaries, but actors. So this has to be the center. So thank you so much for this time.
Thank you so.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Kerry. Yeah.
Yes.
So
by contributing, everyone's voice counts. So keep contributing. Thank you, and all contributions, questions are welcome.
Thank you so much, Kerry, for the information and on COVID-19. So now I would like to we excuse the Minister, Honorable Dr. Albino from Republic of South Sudan is leaving. And thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for being with us and share and the thought you shared, wisdom. It has contributed so much for the young generation across East Africa. And we hope we'll take into consideration everything you have said. And we hope for the better future of young people across Africa. So now I would like to welcome the performance from Gasparino. Gasparino, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, Kamala.
Okay. Yeah.
But my video is not ready.
Okay, let me ask. The admin will allow you shortly.
Okay. Still not yet.
Okay, admin, please, if you can allow Gaspar. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Gasparino, and I'm here with my friend Gideon, and we're here to present to you the song African Swag. This is the song from my first album, and it's talking about the things that we Africans should celebrate every day, the things that we might be taking for granted, but these are what defines us as Africans. And the topic of today, silencing the guns, and with this song goes together. So I will welcome you, and I hope you have a very good time.
Okay, you can proceed now.
Because nobody does better like us. We got no money, but always we have. We show swag everywhere we fight. Come join us, show your swag. Because nobody does better like us. We got no money, but always we have. We show swag everywhere we party. Come join us, show your swag, show your swag. African swag is why we got it, yeah. Come join us. My men, come and celebrate. African swag in the air. We party all night and share. Our true vows never forget. We work hard and when we got it, party, brothers and sisters. We work hard and when we got it, party, friends and lovers. We got hard, and when we got a party, brothers and sisters. We work hard, and when we got a party, friends and lovers. Because nobody does better like us. We got no money, but always we have. We show swag everywhere we party. Come join us, show your swag. Because nobody does better like us. We got no money, but always we have. We show swag everywhere we party. Come join us, show your swag, show your swag. African swag is what we got it, yeah. Come join us. Let's dance shaku shaku. Let's dance malewa. Let's dance bongo flavor. Let's dance rumba. Let's dance shaku shaku. Let's dance malewa. Let's dance bongo flavor. Let's dance rumba. And let's silence the guns, of course. African swag is what we got it, yeah. Come join us. Because nobody does better like us. We got no money, but always we have. We show swag everywhere we party. Come join us, show your swag. We are silencing the guns. We are silencing the guns. African noble guns, silencing the guns.
Thank you so much, Gasparino. What's your name for the music? What's your name for the music?
Sorry?
What's your name for the music? You are AKA.
I am Gasparino. I use Gasparino as a musician,
Okay.
but also people call me Sprino, but Gasparino is the one that suits me. So you can get me on YouTube by Gasparino Aule, on Instagram, Gasparino Aule, and on Twitter and everywhere.
Thank you. That's opportunity for young people in Africa. You need to use the space and okay. So now I would like to thank you so much, Gasparino, and your team for the performance. Actually, this was a nice one and the best one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kamala. Thank you.
Yeah. So now I would like to call on Mr. Lux from Peace and Security Department for closing remarks. I would like to take this chance to welcome you, sir, for closing remarks. And I think you have been following the conversation and the question, the agendas from young people. So now I would like to take the opportunity to welcome you for closing remarks. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. I realize that time is fast spent. So how many minutes do I have for these remarks so I don't go on for too long?
Around the 3, because
3 minutes. That's fine. 3 minutes is absolutely fine. I will skip all the protocols, but I want to say thank you so much to everyone who's had a hand in organizing this really successful event. I think it's particularly useful to have these conversations where young people across the continent can have these conversations with, if you like, the more senior counterparts. I think we in Africa have now come to the understanding that youth are not a problem, but they are indeed a useful resource, not only in community conflicts, but also increasingly both at the national and regional levels, as we've seen. Personally, from my experience with the Youth for Peace Africa program, I've seen tremendous work that young women and men are doing. And I think this is one of the things that have motivated the Youth for Peace Africa program of the African Union to remain dedicated and, oftentimes going above what would be referred to as the institutional limits to ensure that this journey into advancing YPS is achieved. Let me quickly state that there are really important things that have happened this year, 2020, the year dedicated to silencing the guns. And this is the African Union's Peace and Security Council's adoption of two really important documents, the study on the roles and contributions of youth to peace and security in Africa, which is a hallmark thing because it then recognizes that young people are indeed making positive contributions to resolving conflicts and by extension, silencing the guns on the continent. The second refers to the Continental Framework on Youth, Peace and Security and its 10-year implementation plan. And these documents set out what youth engagement on the continent should be, their interactions with different stakeholders, the AU, the REX, and very important member states as well. So I would implore youth, individuals, and networks to familiarize themselves with these policy documents and see how they can use these to optimize their contributions. Let me say that something really important the program is looking to do is to ensure that both documents are taken to the national levels where they're really important, because our national governments and member states must be aware of these documents and how youth and themselves should interact to advance the cause of peace and security and silencing the guns by extension. In closing, let me say to young people in East Africa, as with the rest of the continent, that the AU does not consider young people as perpetrators of conflicts or targets of violence, but rather as actors and partners in promoting peace and security in the continent and the journey towards silencing the guns. And I think it's very important that this step should be taken by other stakeholders, most especially member states, national governments, to ensure that the vibrancy, the resilience, innovation of young peace builders can be brought to the fore in achieving silencing the guns, the Africa we want. However, young peace builders must also seize these opportunities that their representative, the Youth Envoy, has created and has done with several initiatives to bridge the gap between themselves and institutions with the older generation leading, such as the AU, the REX, and in fact, national governments. So I think in closing, finally, I'd like to say well done to all the participants of this meeting, as with those who are unable to join for whatever reasons, and your efforts are appreciated, and we'll continue to work with you as partners to ensure that the goal, the Africa we want by silencing the guns, will be achieved. I thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for the closing remarks. And we are so glad to have you. And thank you for the information from the Africa Union Peace Department on the documents that have been passed. But also, now I would like to thank everyone who has participated in this opening event, from our Honorable Aya Chebi. She's Africa Youth Envoy, and she's doing a great job across Africa to unite young people, and she's doing a great work. Actually, we need to appreciate that, because on her position and the entire young population across Africa continent is so big. Thank you so much for their work, and thank you so much for supporting young people. But also, Dr. Solomon, thank you so much. Honorable Minister Dr. Albino from the Republic of South Sudan, thank you so much. Victor Ochieng, thank you so much for participating, for your thoughts. Ilward, and lastly, Kerry from Burundi, and Mr. Lux from Africa Union. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank everyone who has participated in this meeting. But also, we are live in Zoom and Facebook. You can keep the conversation online on social media, and you can keep engaging the questions I saw there was a lot of questions and we didn't have some time to respond them, but we can have time to respond them through social media. So you can just tap the hashtag Africa Youth Lead, and you can put your question, or you can search the account of AU Youth Envoy and you put your question. We keep the conversation. Thank you so much for your time joining us. And I would like to conclude. By the way, thank you so much for the performance from Uganda and from Tanzania, Gasparino. Thank you so much, and your team for joining us. Okay, with that, I would like to ask those who have registered for the breakout session. You can see on your email, you'll find the email that will redirect you to the session, and you'll join the breakout session. Thank you so much. And now this goes back to admin.